recorded on this computer, so I can kill this one here.
Who said you can't teach a good guy by new tricks? Who knew?
Yes.
Somebody dropped out.
Yeah. Okay, we're good to go. Thank you for.
Cool.
Rabbi Grauman's waiting as well.
No.
It looks like they're all on.
Okay, Rabbi Grauman, we ready? Jay, you can hear me?
Yeah, we're fine. You want me to start? Or after
Yep.
you give you need to give the,
I'll give the names. That's not a problem.
no, the sponsorship is David.
David Jure is sponsored
No, I don't I
in
don't
honor
have
of
any,
Rabbi Grauman
sound.
and all the members of the Shiur.
I see them talking, but I unmuted and I don't have sound.
You don't have sound.
Because we hear, oh,
We hear you.
Yes. Okay, let me get my team viewer. Hold on. Second. How do I get on my team viewer now? 1 second. How do I get on team viewer? How do I get on team viewer right now? I got to X this out. Hold on.
I think we just lost him. He'll have to come back on.
Sounds like he's trying to get support, probably one of his kids on by a team viewer.
Yep.
all right, Scott, I guess you're giving cheer.
Yep. Okay, so we're all going to turn to page Yud Beis Amud Aleph. We're going to
There you
start a new Mishnah. But I'm going to wait for Rabbi to start that Mishnah.
Smart move. Smart move.
Yeah, it's about the middle of the page.
Okay. Mishnah. Let's see. Bono.
I signed in a little late. Did we already do Mishnah Barrels and your toots and stuff?
No,
No.
we're waiting for Rabbi Grauman. He dropped off and he'll have to come back on.
Okay, because I mean, we could do that. It's up to you.
Yeah, I don't see him yet. Hold on. All right, we got a bunch of participants.
Yep. Next week, remember that we have a time change, so we get to sleep in an hour later.
Oh, wow.
Yay.
Extend this year even longer.
Yeah.
This week we have a bunch of potential shidduchim,
Uh-oh.
grandsons, and boys and girls. Pretty exciting when you start to add them all up.
Jay, I like that you've got a real virtual background. The clouds and sky map.
Oh, that's my basement.
The old-fashioned way of getting a,
Yeah, no, it looks like I'm in the clouds, and that light is really harsh behind me.
That's Jay Jr.
That's Jay Jr. if you want to call it. Yeah.
J Light. Hey, Menashe, is there a way to help Rabbi Grauman that you know of?
There is. If he wasn't doing a team viewer, I'd send him a show my PC and I'd hook up that way. That's what I do with all my customers. But my guess is that it's going to be something pretty simple because we were able to hear him.
Yeah, we heard him
Which
fine.
means, and we could see him.
And I saw him. Yeah.
Right, which means it's probably just that he accidentally, or maybe somebody else used the computer last night or something and turned the speaker off. And
Here it comes.
Uh-huh.
How are you, Luz?
We
Yeah,
see
it doesn't
you.
have sound.
We see you and we hear you, Rabbi Grauman.
Maybe type in the chat to let him know.
Right. But he could also use his phone to get an audio and just use the video.
Saying-
Now we can't hear him.
Can't
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm talking to them. They said we can see and hear you, but I can't hear them.
Yes, we hear you.
I can't hear you.
And we see you.
Well, we're not talking.
We might have nothing productive to say.
Are your speakers on?
And now I hear them. What just happened? Just a moment.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I was having problem hearing any of you. I now have it. Thank you, David. Thank you. Okay. All right. I think we're back online. I was not hearing any of you.
Okay. Well, Jay, you want to take it away?
Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. We have the Mazel Tov department. We have a lot of potential shidduchim. We have sons and we have boys and girls today. We'll start with Tuvia Grauman on the birth of a great grandson.
Mazel tov.
Mazel
Mazel
tov.
tov.
And Eric Goldman on the birth of a son.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Ebby and Mark Katz on the birth of two grandchildren, one boy and one girl.
Oh,
Mazel
Mazel tov and
tov.
mazel tov squared.
Ellen and Larry Korb on the birth of a granddaughter, so there's the two girls.
Mazel tov.
Ruthie and David, the writer, on the birth of a grandson. So we had, I think, 4 or 3-2 this week. Any other mazel tovs to announce? No. Okay. Category 2 or 4 Shlema. Please raise your hand and add the name in.
Tana Leilon Ben Shana Tzipora.
Shalom Shana Tzipora. David Meir B'chai Tzipa.
Chaim Aiden Shalom ben Alta Brina.
Chaim Aiden Shalom Ben Alta Brina.
Rave Binyamin Raphael Ben Reut.
Rabbi Raphael. Say again, Rabbi Raphael.
Rave Binyamin
Raphael
Raphael
Aiden Ben Reut.
Ben Reut.
Rivka Malka Bat Matil.
Rivka Malka Bat Matil.
Rav Yisachar Dov Ben Chaya Bracha.
Yisachar Dov Ben Chaya Bracha.
Rav Natalia Levi Ben Chana.
Rav Naftali Halevi Ben Chana.
And do we do Rabbi Sachs or?
No.
Okay. Rav Yaakov Tzvi Ben Liba.
Rav Yaakov Tzvi Ben Liba. Rav Rafal Yisrael Yaakov Ben Bela. Chana Bas Leah.
Rav Yitzchak Zev ben Devora.
Rav Yitzchak Zev Ben Devora.
Meir Ben Liba.
Meir Ben Liba.
Rachmil Moshe Ben Rachel.
Yerachmiel Moshe Ben Rachel.
Sarah Bas Esther.
Sarah Bas Esther.
Marissa Bas Toby.
Marissa Bas Toby. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Rabbi. It's good to see you. And
Nice
everyone.
to see you. Okay.
There's nothing else. How about yard sites this week? Nothing.
Okay.
Okay, Rabbi.
Okay. Thank you. A few minutes late. I'm sorry. Okay. So we're holding at Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph. We're starting the Mishnah. We finished the sugya last week with regard to the question of chiluk between get as shlichus and finding a metzia and ownership. So now the Mishnah is going to turn to a different aspect of metzia. So it says the Mishnah. There's a general rule. Metzias beno ubito hakatanim. If a person has young children, katanim here we will define as under 12 in a day. Metzias avdos b'choso hakananim. If a metzia that's found by his male or female servant who are non-Jews. Metzias ishto and the Metzia of his wife. We'll see why she's included in this category. And Hari Elu Shalo, they belong to the husband. They belong to the man. Metzias Beno Bito Hagadolim, however, Metzias Avdush Choso Ho Ivrim, Metzias Ishto, Shegirsha, he divorced her, Apapish Lanosim Ksuba, even though he didn't give her the Ksuba. In other words, the Ksuba is an integral part of the divorce, so you might think that changes the sort of the stature. Says the Mishnah, if she's divorced, even if she didn't get the ksuba, Hari Elu Shalahen, then the Metzia that they find belongs to them and not to the husband or the master. Rashi, Metzias Beno Bito Hakatanim. So here the Rashi makes an important distinction. Beno Katan Begemar Meforish Mike Hama. There's a difference between a male and a female katan. So the Beno Katan, the son, the Gemara will start talking about in a few minutes. Bito Hakatana, how about a daughter who's a katan? So the Gemara in Ksubas brings down the pasuk, Yalfina lo mikroi de katana va'afnara kol shavach nurel liavia. We learn that from the pasuk having to do with oaths, making an oath, and there so the Gemara learns out in Ksubis that just like with an oath for a katana, it's all contingent on the father. So everything related to a katana up to the age of 12 and a day is totally contingent on the father. All right, so that was, in other words, there was a difference between the way they treated young children, male and female, which we know historically, but it's based on a pasuk that it talks only about a katana with regard to Neurel Beis Haviyah, and not about a katan. So we'll see in a minute how the Gemara interprets all of this. Metzias Avdush Choso Hakatanim Shalo. Why? Shehari Gufo Konolo Erlomis. Because the again under total law, an eved and a shifcha who are non-Jewish, their body, their whole being is kind of ilamis, is nachaltem. Now, of course, there are obligations that the master has. He can't just abuse his evadim. In fact, they're very stringent. But with regard to an eved and a shifcha, they do belong totally to the master. Therefore, the logical extension is that if the eved finds something, it belongs to the master. Metzias ishto. Now, this is very interesting because why? In other words, this is a rabbinical takana because of Eva. Eva means strife, meaning that since the husband has a requirement to clothe and sustain his wife, in other words, he's married to her, so he has to give her everything that she needs. So therefore, reciprocity would indicate that under that strict guideline, of course, we live in a different world, but when you think about if the husband has an achrayus to the wife, then the wife should have an achrayus to the husband. So something that the wife finds should then be part of what he owns, because in fact, he gives her everything. So therefore, if she finds something, it should belong to him. So Mishum Iba is a rabbinical decree, which by the way is used much more than just in a husband-wife situation. And we call it Darche Shalom. We call it Darche Shalom. Eva, it means Darche Shalom. So it should be peace among the marriage, that the husband shouldn't resent the wife that he gives her and clothes her and feeds her. And if she finds a find, she doesn't have to share it with him. That's the theory. However, a Jewish maid or eved or shifcha, the Gemara Parach, so there's a whole different, we'll learn in the Gemara, the whole different line of thinking there. Why is she lo yeh elapoyel? If they should be like a worker. So there's a kasha there, which we'll go through in more detail, that they should be like a worker. An eved should be like a worker, and therefore everything should belong to the balabais. That's a question that we'll address. All right. So that's in general terms what the Mishnah. Each one of these has to be understood particularly, but generally we understand that the things that can be under a master's control should belong to him. Those things that we logically understand are not under the master's control don't belong to him. Okay, general rule, but now we're going to see the specifics. Omer Shmuel. So now the Rashi gave us a distinction that by a young girl, it's from a pasuk of the Torah that everything that she has until the age of majority belongs to the father. In fact, we know the halacha, and this is as a practical matter, that a father can marry off. And what's more controlling than controlling your child, that whether they want to or not? And that's a different question. But let's just say that the father has total control. He can marry off his daughter against her will up to the age of 12 of the day. She has a right of recusal thereafter. But Lamaisa, the father has that control. He doesn't have that same control over his son, a cotton. He can't marry off his cotton. Okay, so what's the theory? Omar Shmuel, why do we say that the Metzias cotton aviv, it's not a pasuk in the Torah? Says Rashi, Metzias cotton aviv, Bishlomo bito veishta Talmud Mefarsh law the Makomim b'Ksubis. Okay, the Gemara Ksubis brings down a pasuk. That's with regard to his daughter and his wife. What about a son, a minor? Elabano Tamamai, says Rashi, Meritza Eitzel Aviv. Hilchach Kishanagbiya Latorach Aviv Higbiya. Very important. Rashi says that it's the natural thing that when a young boy finds something, he immediately picks it up and runs to his father. That was the natural inclination. So according to this, what happens is the minute he picks it up and makes a hagbah, it right away belongs to the father. He didn't even have to bring it to him because the connection is that he would bring it to him automatically. So the hagbah, because remember, a cotton doesn't have his own intrinsic ability to do these things. A cotton can't acquire. So the interpretation is he's acquiring at the time he lifts it up, he's already acquiring it for his father because he would bring it to him naturally. So this is an important distinction. Why? We'll see in a minute that this makes a difference whether or not what he's doing is the ownership of the father is midoraisa or midrabanan. In other words, the underlying question, which this Gemara will talk about, is when a minor son picks something up to deliver to his father, is that midoraisa that it belongs to the father, or only midrabanan? And we'll see what the nafkamina is. But in any event, what Rashi is telling us is that the act of lifting the hagbah is immediately up for the father's benefit. Okay, so says the Gemara, Amar Shmuel, "B'tema Omer Metzia Katan La'aviv Shebishor Shemotza Meritza Eitzel Aviv Ve'ena Ma'acher B'Yado." In other words, he doesn't carry in his own hand. There isn't even a fraction of a moment when it belongs to him. It immediately belongs to the father. That act of hagbah belongs to the father. Okay?
Excuse me, Rabbi.
Yes.
Is it the same exact timing for a daughter? The minute she touches it and lifts it up?
We don't even have to come to that. In other words, the answer as a practical matter is yes, but it's midoraisa. The Torah tells us that the minute she touches it, it belongs to the father. With the cotton, it's not midoraisa. That's the chilik. But you're right, as a practical matter, when the daughter picks it up, it's immediately the father's because the Torah tells us that.
So the timing is the same for both of them.
Correct. It's the difference of whether it's midoraisa or not midoraisa.
Question, either way, let's say you have a dog that's trained to pick up any object and bring it to his master. Would that apply then, that if a dog finds Aveda, something in the street that immediately intrinsically belongs to its owner?
Yes, because uh, even if you want to parallel, I mean, the Gemara doesn't talk about animals, but I mean, I don't want to compare an eved to a behemoth.
Right.
But it's ownership. You own the eved, you own the behemoth.
Right. And so you don't even have to say that it's the derech of this particular dog to bring it to its owner. It's just the intrinsic ownership that takes
Right.
it.
But now think of it this way. What's the opposite of that? If a animal, remember we have the halacha that when you have an ox and you're going down the street, you have to muzzle him. Why? Because he shouldn't nibble from the trees or the leaves owning to someone. So in other words, your animal, you can be chayiv gezela, right?
Right.
Flip side.
Right. The flip side, if it's a hefker thing and it does no damage to someone else, it is yours.
Correct.
Right?
Exactly. Exactly. So the answer is yes, that this is all, when there's a pasuk like there is and there's a pasuk for behemoth too, because we know that the Torah tells us in the negative that if an animal eats from someone else's field, you're chayiv gzela. So that's midaraisa. So we know that. The same with a young girl and a wife and all the others, it's midaraisa. The question here is a young boy, what's his status? So Shmuel wants to tell us that it's not midaraisa. Why is it not midaraisa? Because since the minute he picks it up, it automatically is the father's. If it was midaraisa, it would be his. It would be his midaraisa. Because it's not his, it can't be midaraisa, because a young child does not have the ability to acquire. He can't acquire anything. In other words, his status doesn't allow him to acquire. It's acquiring on behalf of the father. So, and Rashi says he makes a hagbah for the father. Okay, fine. That's the Gemara.
What's the
Frankly,
difference? What's the difference between a boy and a girl of the same age, and why would that be different?
Okay, so I mean, the short answer is because the Torah tells us. But you're asking the question, why would it be? Because as a practical matter, and again, maybe it shows the colors of what the Torah is telling us, that there is a difference between a girl and a boy. A girl relies on her family. Therefore, the Torah is giving us al pi seichel. A girl up until the age of majority is totally under the control of the father, and therefore the father is required to give her everything and receive everything. But a young boy, which we know is a practical matter. I mean, as a practical matter, young boys are much more independent, right? I mean, that's the nature of the child. Okay, so the Torah is following the nature of the child and saying, wait a minute, a young boy is not the same as a young girl, both in terms of their physical being, their mental being, and how we approach them. So min HaTorah, there's already a distinction between a boy and a girl. I mean, again, we're living in a society where it should be neutral, right? Every boy, girl, everything should be the same, everything. But al pi halacha, that was never the case. There was always a difference between a male and a female in terms of inheritance and all these other things. And this is just an offshoot of that the Torah does not include a young boy in the category of being midoraisa under the control of the father. Why? That's a question on the Torah, but the Torah makes that distinction. So, vibalt, a girl cannot be koneh, midoraisa. A boy, okay, now let's understand. Is it midoraisa? Is it not midoraisa? Shmuel says it can't be midoraisa because the minute he picks it up, yes, he would run to the father, but the Torah is telling us it's somewhat of an independent, it's like a knee jerk. You know it's going to happen, but it has to happen. So it's an automatic that he would pick it up and bring it to his father to show his father what he found. So Rashi says, therefore, the minute he makes the hagbah, the minute he lifts it up, it is already the father's. Okay, I mean, you have to understand it in that context, whereas today we would say that's not fair, it's not right, a boy and a girl should be the same, but l'maisa lahalacha, it's not the same.
Is there any distinction between a minor child, boy or girl, in terms of when they do damage?
No. Okay. Frek the Gemara. Now the Gemara asks an interesting kasha. Lememra, now everything we just said, right? Lememra, do you mean to say the Shava Shmuel cotton Leslie Zechuyel and Avshe Midoraisa? The Gemara asked that question. Do you mean to say that Midoraisa he can't have his chus? Because we just said that. We just said that if it was Midoraisa, it can't be Midoraisa because Midoraisa he has no ability to be kone. He doesn't have that ability to acquire. So therefore, if he's acquiring, he's automatically acquiring for his father. So, but Shmuel is asking the question because there's a reason for him asking the question. We're going to see that may not be the case. So, are you saying that he can't be kohen midoraisa? Tanya, we have the following brisa. We talked about this a little bit in the recently, but here we're going to review it. Hasoches hapoel. If a man owns a field and he hires a worker to harvest the field, Yalkit beno achrov, his child, and he's a poor man, and he gives him his wages to do the field. Now, the halacha is like this. If a poor man owns a field, let's say a poor man has a field, he owns a field, he cannot collect leket from his own field. In other words, his field, the leket has to go to other aniyim, not himself. However, if someone is hired to work in a field, he doesn't own the field, he's hired to work in the field, Yalkit beno achrov, his child can walk behind him and collect leket, right? That makes sense. In other words, you're hiring me, I happen to be a poor man, and I'm you're paying me a wage, and that's fine. My minor son, my minor child is walking behind me and collecting the leket. Mind you, I'm not intentionally doing it, I'm doing it la halacha, but the leket falls anyway. So the halacha is he may collect the leket. Okay? So let's think about this a minute. Rashi, Yalkit beno achrov, muter lebeno shel poel im onihu, the child of a poel who's an oni, he's permitted lilkot acher oviv as leket hanosher. He's permitted to collect the leket that falls on the field. Aval im kibel hapoel as a soda lemechza l'shlish revia, which that's the next, very next line of the Gemara. What happens in those days? They didn't pay a wage. Sharecroppers were given a share of the field, let's say a tenth, whatever it is. So they're not working for a wage; they're working for ownership, for sharecropping. V'harihu kabbalah bias b'sadeh, that he's considered as a part owner for that percentage. The lo yalakit b'no achrov, the child cannot collect leket l'fishalakit b'no la'aviv, because the child is going to immediately give it to the father, and it's as if the father is collecting his own leket, and that's not permissible. You see the chilik? If he's working for a wage, he has nothing to do with the field. The halacha is a minor child can collect leket, because that leket, even if it goes to the father, it does go to the father for a minor, but the father isn't an owner in the field. If the father collects a sharecropper wage, which means a percentage, then he's technically considered an owner. An owner may not collect leket in his own field, and since a minor child will immediately bring it to the father, it's as if the father is collecting leket, and that's not permissible. See how the Gemara thinks? So it's a step process, and that's the halacha. That's that brisa.
Excuse me,
Rabbi.
Yes.
If the child picks up, does he acquire it? Has he acquired it for the father even just by picking it up?
Remember what Rashi just said. Rashi just told us the minute he picks it up, it belongs to the father. So if it belongs to the father, if he's a wage earner, it doesn't matter. He doesn't own the field. Only an owner can collect his own leket. But if he's a sharecropper and owns a part of the field, then what the child is picking up is for the owner, and an owner may not pick up leket on his own field. And he's a sharecropper, he's a part owner.
So it's nothing. It's
He can't take the leket that his son picks up if he's a sharecropper.
okay.
Okay, Jay, go ahead.
Is there any role for the father's father, the grandfather, when he picks it up when he picks it up, the father gets it?
Well, we say b'nei banim kebanim, so it shouldn't matter in the lineage whether it's a child or a grandchild, because b'nei banim kebanim. So whoever it would be, we're saying a father, it could be a grandfather, could be the same thing. It's still kebanim. It's still
Right, but if they're both living, does the grandfather have any share if the grandson picks up something?
No. It belongs only to the father.
Okay.
Rabbi Grauman?
Yeah.
So just the principle of this also says that the child has yad, but not his own yad, but really it's more his father's yad.
Correct.
That he's an extension of. Okay, I just want to clarify that.
No, but getting back to the
and therefore, since the halacha is that a man cannot collect leket on his own field, and he's a sharecropper, which means he owns the field, he can't collect, and he can't take from his son, who is him. The son is him.
So getting back to the grandfather idea, though, is an interesting one. Let's say that there's a child whose father passed away. His grandfather is a sharecropper in this field.
The grandfather is like the father.
So it's as if we might call a guardian or something, but having enough responsibility that now that child is considered to acquire for the grandfather.
And he cannot collect for the grandfather either. So
but the question is, would it be that what comes into his hand becomes for his grandfather?
Yes, exactly.
Rabbi Grauman?
Yeah.
So the ownership of the land is not changing, right?
The ownership of the land, depending on whether he's a poel, a worker for a wage, or a sharecropper where he gets a share of the field.
Right, but if he is a poor owner, right? If he owns the land, but he happens to be, I'm wondering, as an aside, if he owns the land, exactly how poor can he be?
Right.
But if he owns the land and he's harvesting his own land,
yes,
he's not eligible for leket.
Absolutely not allowed to collect leket.
If he owns the land and someone else hires him to harvest the crops on his own land,
how would that be?
He still owns the land.
So why would someone else hire him?
Well, let's say that for whatever reason, someone decided to hire him to harvest the crops.
He owns the land, but someone else is planting on the land. They have an agreement. And
sure. Let's say he leased it out.
Right.
Yep.
Someone else is planting the seed, and then he says, "I'll hire you." Yeah.
So now the critical question is, what is his share of the harvest of that land? If he gets nothing from the land, then it's like a poem. In other words, he owns land. He has nothing to. I lease my whole land to you. I'm all thumbs. You're the guy. You plant, you harvest, and then you pay me a wage for leasing my land
or for harvesting.
For both. But then it's not my land for purposes of the produce. For purposes of the produce.
But who owns the land? The owner owns it, and he's leasing it out.
Right. So when the Torah tells us that you can't collect leket on your own field, it means that you are the beneficiary of the produce of the field. If you have nothing to do other than a rental fee, then you don't have an interest in the produce. Doesn't matter if it's a rich produce or a poor produce.
And it doesn't matter if indeed the title of the land belongs to you.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We're focused on the produce.
Exactly.
You're the owner of the produce. If you give away the produce, it's not your produce. The fact that you got a wage doesn't mean that you have a shaykhus to the produce. Therefore, now the question is, if the young child was the young child of the lessee who leased the produce, who leased the land, now the question is, can he collect leket for the father?
And the answer is yes.
And the answer is yes, because he's not the owner of the land. Right?
Thank you.
So, okay.
For these intents and purposes.
Okay, so the halachas are clear. The halachas are clear, and now it follows according to what the halacha is. So now, so let's look a little bit further in the Gemara, because Rashi anticipated the Gemara, and we said Now, if he hired himself to the landowner for a chelik, a third, a quarter, lo yalakit b'no achrav, his child may not collect for the reason that we just said, because he has ownership interest, and since the child will the son, the cotton, will immediately turn to the father, so the father can't collect leket on his own field because he has an ownership interest. That's the halacha. Okay. Now comes Rabbi Yossi Omer. Listen to this. Rabbi Yossi Omer, ben kachu ben kach. In either case, whether he is leasing it or whether he's sharecropping, yalakit beno ve'ishto achrav. The child can collect leket. That would seem to fly in the face of what we just said, because if he's a sharecropper and owns a chelik in the field, how can Rabbi Yossi say that he collects leket? Okay, so we'll understand in a minute. V'omar Shmuel, and Shmuel says halacha k'Rabbi Yossi. Shmuel says the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. Now, what's the kasha here? The kasha is going to be, we're going to articulate it in a minute. Shmuel says that the metzia of a cotton is right away the father's from the moment he lifts it up. The Gemara says, and therefore it can't be midoraisa, because midoraisa he would have an ownership interest and the son does not. So now the Gemara is going to find a stira in Shmuel. Shmuel says that it can't be midoraisa. Shmuel holds like Rabbi Yossi. So now the Gemara will articulate what the kasha is on Shmuel. Till now we've just laid it out. Now the Gemara is going to go forward and say what the kasha is. If you say that a cotton has rights midoraisa for himself, then when he's gathering for himself. That's if you say it's midoraisa, right? So if it's doraisa, then he has it for himself. But and his father is zocha from him. How is he zocha from him? How would a person be zocha from someone else? You have a son. Your son has rights to be zocha, to acquire. So midiraisa he acquires. So the only way the father can get it is through a transaction, a gift. The son makes a gift to the father. In other words, the son acquires it, and then he gives it to his father because he has hakoras hatov to his father, because the father sustains him. So he makes a gift to the father. Okay, that makes sense. That's a step-by-step process. But if you say a cotton does not have zechus midoraisa, ki komalaket la'aviv komalaket, then he's gathering from his father. Avua oshehu amai ishtu b'no malaket achrav. The father is an osher. We use the term osher. Osher means he's wealthy. He's not wealthy. We use it, it's a euphemism. I mean, the fact that he's a sharecropper, doesn't have two nickels to rub together, but he's making a sharecropper salary, means he's now an osher. By definition, he owns part of the land. That's what the Gemara means when it says an osher. So all of a sudden, if you're going to say that the cotton does not have any rights on his own, because midoraisa he can't collect, then so how can you have it both ways? Shmuel holds like Rabbi Yossi, ben kachu ben kach, whether he's a sharecropper or whether he's a wage earner, the son can give it to the father. How is that possible? If he's an osher, if he's a sharecropper and owns part of the land, how can the son give it to the father? The halacha is that a person cannot collect leket on his own field. So that's the kasha here. So now, so what's the kasha on Shmuel? we're going to talk about Rabbi Yossi in a minute. What's the kasha on Shmuel? Shmuel says that it can't be midoraisa. Why? Because the son right away, it's considered when he makes a hagbah, it's considered the father's, and therefore it can't be midoraisa, because midoraisa, he would have ownership interest. And here Shmuel is holding like Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yossi says ben kach u'ben-kach. What does he mean ben kach u'ben-kach? That means he holds that in the case where the father is a sharecropper, the son may give it to the father. How can the son give it to the father? He's giving him leket on his own field. And you're telling me that he can do it because he's picking it up midoraisa and giving him a gift. That can't be. Then it's a stira. If he's picking it up midoraisa and therefore can give a gift to his father, Shmuel just got through saying that a child who picks it up is not midoraisa. So this is a stira on Shmuel. Shmuel says that it can't be the midoraisa because he's allowed to give it to the father, but yet Shmuel holds like Rabbi Yossi, ben kach u'ben kach, which means that when he's a sharecropper and he owns portion of the field, the son should not be able to pick it up, because why? It would be as if the father's picking up. So the only way he can pick it up is if midoraisa he's allowed to pick it up. And therefore, midoraisa he can pick it up and he can give it to his father as a gift. That's okay. But it's not okay for Shmuel, because Shmuel just got through saying that when the minor picks it up, it's not midoraisa. So you understand the stira. That's the stira on Shmuel. How can Shmuel say that it's not midoraisa? The fact that he holds like Rabbi Yossi means it's possible that he's picking up what his father owns and it's still okay. Then it could only be okay if it's midoraisa. Right? Is the kasha clear? It's a stira on Shmuel because Shmuel holds it's not midoraisa, and from holding like Rabbi Yossi, one of the possibilities is that it is midoraisa, and the cotton is acquiring it and giving it to his father as a gift, which is okay, by the way. That would be okay. That's not considered improper leket, but it's a stira on Shmuel, because it means that according to Shmuel, it could be midoraisa, and Shmuel just got through saying that it can never be midoraisa. That's the kasha stira on Shmuel. Okay? Now, look at Rashi. Ben kach, okay, ben kach u'ben kach, de'im ha'av osher haben oni v'zocha la'atzmo. Like we just said, that if the father is an usher, it means that he's a sharecropper and owns a part of it. Then the child is an oni, and he's zoche for himself. The only way he can be zoche for himself is if you say it's midoraisa, and Shmuel says it can't be midoraisa. That's the kasha. So here we have a stira. So the Gemara wants to answer the stira as follows, and says the following. Shmuel Tama Didon Nitne, and by the way, we see this elsewhere in the Gemara many times. We've learned it. Shmuel Tama the Tana Didon Kama. Belay Lo Svirale. Shmuel doesn't. It's not a stira on Shmuel, because when Shmuel articulated in the beginning that it belongs, that it automatically a child picks it up for his father, he's explaining the Mishnah. He's not giving you his own view. He's explaining the Mishnah. His own view is that you may pick it up. It's midoraisa. It's okay. In other words, the minor child has a right midoraisa to pick it up. The Mishnah that says he can't pick it up, it's not midoraisa. So that's what it means. Shmuel Tama the Tana the Don Kamale Vele Lo Svirale. He doesn't hold like it, therefore it's not a stira, because the Mishnah goes according to the Tana, and the Tana says it's not midoraisa, and Shmuel holds it is midoraisa. Says Rashi, Tama the Tana did not come and Mipnema Omra Metzias Cotton Aviv. Why does the Mishnah say Metzias Aviv Cotton Aviv? Is because it's not midoraisa, and therefore a minor child has no rights. The right is automatically the father's. But Shmuel says absolutely he has rights. It's midoraisa. I hold it's midoraisa. So it's basically a machlokes between Shmuel and the Tana, but it's not a stira in Shmuel, because Shmuel never said it wasn't doraisa. He was quoting the Tana. He wasn't quoting himself. And the Gemara does that, by the way, often. It says, no. When a person says it, he doesn't mean to say it on his own behalf. He's really saying it on behalf of someone else. Okay.
Rabbi Grauman?
Yeah.
Is the machlokas in this case, can Shmuel do this on the Tana himself because it's Shmuel, or is it has to be that he has to have his own Tana that he holds by?
I'm sorry, say it again. What's the question?
Because it's Shmuel, because he's an Amora, then
Shmuel was the Amora who was interpreting the Mishnah.
Right. So,
and
but
he's
chilik on the fact that he says it's not deraisa. That he's
machalik, right?
He's machalik, but because he's Shmuel rather than being another Amora, because he's Shmuel, so he can machalik. Right. Because other Amorim can't do that.
Right. No, because Shmuel's saying that I have a source. In other words, yes, he's saying that Tana is saying not, but I will hold like others who say yes. I mean, there is nothing that's unanimous.
Okay. So there's a machlokes tomorrow. Even there was a machlokes tonight. Even before that, he had it also.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
And clearly, since the Mishnah is quoting this Tana, it's quoting this Tana because we're saying that that's the halacha. In other words, in the time of the Mishnah, there may have been machlokes on numerous things, but if Rabbi Yehuda Anasi comes and says it's not midoraisa, he's quoting the Tana because that's the source, that's the halacha. Shmuel doesn't have to hold like it because he may hold like a minor Tana who disputes that view. But here we want to bring a raya to this Tana, and we're saying it's no raya at all. Shmuel only quoted the Tana, but he didn't hold like the Tana. Right? Okay.
But if Shmuel says the halacha is like Rabbi Yosei, who was a Tana, that he's considered authoritative,
that he's supporting
in Mamonos, right?
Right, which is why you can do that. Exactly.
Exactly right. Now let's get back to Rabbi Yossi, because here we're talking about Shmuel. What about Rabbi Yossi? Rabbi Yossi seems to be saying something in conflict. That's the other question. The Saba Rabbi Yossi. Now, what about Rabbi Yossi? The Saba Rabbi Yossi, Cotton Isla Zechia Midoraisa. Does Rabbi Yossi say that cotton has chiyuv midaraisa? He has to, right? Because Rabbi Yossi is the one who says benkak for benkak. The only way that you can legitimize a cotton being able to give his father, who is a sharecropper, is if you say that he has a chusim midaraisa, which means the minute he picks it up, he acquires it of his own, and as of his own volition, as a separate matter, he's giving a gift to his father. So it's a broken chain. The son isn't picking it up for the father like Rashi explained Shmuel. He's picking it up for himself because the Torah says you can do it. Then, because he has a chorus that toast to his father, he turns around and gives him a gift. Frank, the Gemara. So the Gemara says, the summer of Rabbi Yossi, cotton is the now the kasha is on Rabbi Yossi for Hotanan. Now we have a different brisa. Listen to this brisa. Metzia's cheresh shota b'cotton. The metzia of a cheresh is a deaf mute, a shota, someone who doesn't have the seichel. The cotton, yesh b'hum mishum gezel. Wait a minute. You can steal from a cotton. It's an isser. It's an isser. Why? Mipnei darkei shalom. So there shouldn't be total chaos. The Chachamim came along and said you can't steal from a cotton. Remember, a cotton doesn't have a reshus. He doesn't own it. An imbecile, a cheresh, how can a cheresh own something? He doesn't own anything. So you would think I could come along, pull it out of his hand and walk away. I could be a bully. No, mipnei darkei shalom, you're not allowed to do it. Rabbi Yossi Omer, wait a minute. Rabbi Yossi says, no, it's not darkei shalom. Gezel gomer. Rabbi Yossi says, gezel gomer, it's theft. Now, Omer Rav Chizda, and Rav Chizda immediately comes to interpret Rabbi Yossi, gezel gomer midivreihen. That Rabbi Yossi doesn't mean gezel gomer midoraisa, he means gezel gomer midrabanan. So wait a minute. I thought that darkei shalom is midrabanan. Darkei shalom is a rabbinic edict. Rabbi Yossi says it's gezel. You and I know that gezel is midoraisa because the Torah said. Comes Rav Chizda says no, he doesn't mean gezel midoraisa. He means gezel midrabanan. What's the chilik between gezel midrabanan and darkei shalom? So the Gemara right away answers, nafkamina lahotzia b'dayonim. The nafkamina is whether you can go to court. And so this is a little bit of a difficult thing to understand because, and we'll review it in a second, but let's just finish it up. Midivreya mipnei darkei shalom, the nafkamina is midrab yosi also lashmi'inam. So Rabbi Yosi comes to teach us lahachmira chachamim b'takantam, that the Rabbanan were machmir in their halacha, in their takana, kegezel gama lahotzi b'dayanim, that if you go to court, now here's the difference between darkei shalom and something that is, whether it's deraisa or midrabanan here. If you go to court and you claim, the cotton says it's mine, if it's kegezel, the court will give him back the object. The kiven the deraisa lesle zechuya nimsa aviv gazel es ha'aniyim. However, if it's darkei shalom, the dayanim will not give it back to him. That's the chilik. The chilik is if you went to court and it's only darkei shalom, the rabbi, the chacham, and the bezdin will not say give it back. Again, I'm not clear on the roots of that chilik, because if it appears to be improper, why wouldn't you get it back? So the teretz seems to be that if you hold it's gezel, which you would think is midoraisa, but it's only a gezel midorabanan, it's a stricter form of gezel which the dayanim have to adhere to, but otherwise not. So tzarich iyan, you have to understand that better. But l'maisa, so we had l'chayra is a kasha of Rabbi Yosi. How can Rabbi Yosi say ben kach or ben kach? I mean, either or. Either he's taking it for himself or he's taking it for his father. You can't have it both ways. How can you do that? So Rabbi Yosi says, no, it's ke'ilu midoraisa. It's not midoraisa. It's really only midrabanan, but because we consider it gezel, the rabbis instituted a gezel midrabanan. So this is a new stature. You have gezel midoraisa, you have darkei shalom, and then you have a hybrid of gezel midrabanan. So we're introducing a new claim. What's the chilik? The chilik is that gezel midrabanan has teeth to it in court. Darkei shalom doesn't. No question, gezel midoraisa does. But according to Rabbi Yosi, Rav Chizda says it's gezel midrabanan, and gezel midrabanan is improper. So now, in the case of a cotton, remember, a cotton was thrown in with cheresh and shota. Cheresh and shota, okay, maybe I get, but a cotton has seichel, but he doesn't have status. Rabbi Yosi gave him status midoraisa. How can that be? Torah says it's not really midoraisa. It's a stricter form of darkei shalom called gezel midrabanan. Okay, so that's what the Gemara is telling us here. Therefore, it's not a stira in Rabbi Yosi. It's not a stira in Rabbi Yosi, and it's not a stira in Shmuel, because Shmuel holds like Rabbi Yosi, and he was only opining the words of the Tana, not his own view. In his own view, it's the oraisa. It's the oraisa. Okay. So now it's a little twisted, but now we have it clear. Shmuel's okay, Rabbi Yosi's okay, and we're fine. Now we still want to understand this question of leket for a cotton. So let me quickly just look at the Mishnah in Peah, because we're going to talk about this Mishnah in Peah for a minute. We've discussed this before. There's another halacha. Let's introduce another halacha in Peah. We know that Peah, leket shikha Peah. I'm talking about leket, but it's in the Gemara in Peah, Mishnah in Peah, because it's all the same. You can only collect leket if it's not yours. If it's yours, you can't collect it. What does it mean, yours? If you're a sharecropper and you're an ani, unfortunately yourself, but the owner gave you a little bit of a better deal, and he said you can be a sharecropper, and the more it's an hourly, as between an hourly wage and being a sharecropper, you'll make a few extra dollars, but I'll give it to you. that makes him an Ashir, euphemistically, makes him an Ashir, and therefore his child cannot collect. Now, let me introduce something else in the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says as follows: there's such a thing as post-leket. After leket is over, there still may be sheaves in the field. A couple of loose sheaves, or a couple of loose stray straw. Who owns that? Is that forbidden? Can I come? I'm an Ashir. Can I come on the land and take it? Says the Mishnah. When the Namushos leave, what is Namushos? Says the Mishnah. So the Bartanur explains, who are they? So now we have to make a distinction of what kind of ani you are. You're a young, energetic ani, or you're an old, broken down ani who can't compete with the young Turks. And when the young Turks leave, they come onto the field and they collect what's left. There's always something left. There's always something left. So the Namushos come, the Zikanim b'chaloshim, the old and the sick. Aholchem al mishantam benachas, they go benachas, they go pramelech, they go slowly. Umalaktim kol shabulos v'shavulos. Remember, there's always something. V'nikroim Namushos al shem shem misham shem v'holchem. V'kivin shanamuchos Namushos halolu shehem achrone hamalaktim. They're the last group of collectors. Holchu misadeh, when they have finished collecting and there's still something on the field, even if it's a stalk or two. Mashenisha achreim besadeh hefker hu l'chol adam. That becomes hefker. It's no longer leket. So leket ends and hefker begins. When? When the numashim leave. Okay, that's the halacha. Okay, now let's look at the Gemara here. Elo Mabaya. So, Asu Kamosha Holchabo Namushos, the Aniyim Gufa Maschia Date. So, Abaya wants to tell us, first of all, he wants to tell us why a cotton who is the son of an Oshir, meaning a sharecropper, can collect, because he's collecting after the Namushos. So in other words, he isn't taking away from another ani. The aniyim have all left. Even the latter group of aniyim have left. Therefore, he's allowed to pick up. This is what Abaya is telling us. El Oma Abaya. You know what we're talking about? We're not talking about a cotton who's stealing from another ani. El Oma Abaya. Also, Kamosha Holchabon Namushas, the aniyim gufa maschia date. Saver berei, the hechem malaktele. So, okay, so that's a good interpretation, right? It's a good interpretation. Yeah, go ahead.
Why don't we say then that that's the case that he's just picking up hefker? Because at the point the halacha means that anything that's left over is considered hefker. So why can't we just say that it's hefker, not
right? It's a good question. So why is he using the term leket? Right? Why is he using the term leket?
Leket. It's not leket. It's hefker.
Right. So Abaya wants to tell us that when he meant leket, he didn't mean leket, he meant hefker. That's what Abaya is telling us. Here we're talking about, because remember, it starts off as leket. It's definitely leket. But now we have 1 degree of leket, a 2nd degree of leket, a 3rd degree of leket. The 3rd degree is not leket anymore, but it was leket. So we have to use the term leket because it all derived from the halacha of leket. So in other words, the Mishnah in Peah wants to tell us that all of a sudden leket becomes hefker. That which you know as leket, when the Namushos leave, is now hefker. So that's Abaya's interpretation. So okay, Ela Oma Abaya Rashi, Rabbi Yossi Nami Ketana Didan Svirle. No, Rabbi Yossi isn't an anomaly. He's like the Tana Didan. Svirle, the cotton, less zechuya. He holds that a cotton does not have zechusim. Remember, he said midaraisa. Yes, he didn't mean midaraisa. Of course, he meant midrabanan. He doesn't have zechusim. V'gabe leket hainu tam the given the yeshlo lepoel zeh bonim v'isha aniyim atzmam miyayshe malaket shelo Shalah, lefikach asu kesada shehocha bo hanemushos. It's like the nemushos come, the nan, which we just learned, me'emis I call adam mutarim, beleket, mishiolcha bo hanemushos, lekute, basa lekute. That's considered leket after leket. The mahi shata, maschia aniyim date. All the aniyim amesiach das, they give up. The hochanami maschu date, they gave up. So when that cotton went in, he was only picking up that which everyone was Mesiach Das, and it was Hefker. And it was Hefker because they were Mesiach Das. Okay? So let's just finish up. So that's the Pshat. Sounds good, right? Amalei Rav Ada Bamasna Labaya. Rav Ada Bamasna is asking a kasha Labaya. V'chi muter la'adam laharbitz ari b'toch sadeh k'dei sheyiru aniyim v'yivarchu. This is an interesting question. Can I install a lion on my field, and therefore people will be afraid to come, and they'll say, Hefker, it's Hefker. I'm giving up, and I'm not collecting there. In other words, what you're telling me is, it's as if he put a intentional block on the field in order to allow that child of the ani to pick up. That's how he's asking the kasha. Abaya says, no, it's totally legitimate. It's Hefker because it's leket after leket, and no one's going to pick it up. The kasha here is, why even in that case should it even be permissible, the appearance of picking up leket, albeit Hefker, because it's like a lion standing in the field and guarding against anybody else. Now, the lion may be friendly to the child, but he's not friendly to anybody else. So his kasha is a little bit
true. That's not exactly true. I mean, in the case of the Nemuchim having gone to the field, it really has been scraped through. In this case, you're posing a hypothetical line. I mean, it's.
So his kasha is, you're right, it's a good question, but listen to his kasha. His kasha is, why is it ever Hefker? It should never be Hefker and never be permitted to be picked up by the child of the owner. This has to do with now, an owner's child can never pick up. And we're saying, you're right, but there's one point at the very end of this process when he can pick up when it is by definition Hefker. Abba is asking him, why is it ever Hefker? It's always like a lion in the field. In other words, he should be untouchable. Untouchable. Why can he possibly touch it? You understand the kasha? That's what he's asking him. Why is there even a nth degree of possibility that the child of the sharecropper will catch it because it's Hefker? It's like a lion in the field. That's his kasha. So the Gemara gives an interesting answer. Ella Omar Rava. Rava says top of Yud Beis and Beis. Ella Omar Rava. So comes Rava and he says, also she'ena zoche kezoche. So he says that you're right. You're absolutely right. The child can never be zoche. He should not be able to be zoche. Why is he zoche? Because there is something here that even the last group of aniyim will not mind. In other words, he's talking about it as a practical matter. Also, she'ena zoche kezoche. We're making him from ena zoche, because this cotton can't be zoche, because it belongs, the father is an ashir, to zoche, where he is zoche. How does that happen? Like magic? You snap your fingers? My tama, what's the reason? So he gives a practical reason. Aniyim gufa nichale. The aniyim will not mind if this child of the sharecropper picks it up. Why won't they mind? Because this ani will one day possibly be a sharecropper. He'll one day be the one who is collecting on behalf of the owner of the field. Wouldn't he want his own child to be able to pick up the loose strands after him? Of course he would. So because he himself could be in the shoes of the current sharecropper. He won't mind if the child of the current sharecropper will pick up that which nobody else will pick up. So the halacha then is never, you're right, we're not making a distinction. The child of an ani who is a sharecropper can never pick up, because it's the halacha is that an owner can't pick up his own stuff, even if it's 2 strands at the end of the pickup. But we're taking license here, because we're saying that if he doesn't pick it up, no one will pick it up. But yet the halacha is the halacha. The teretz is that everybody is saying it's hefker, even though it's leket. It's still hefker, because these aniyim will one day be in the shoe of the other guy, and they'll be in the same position. They'll want their own children to be able to pick it up. Therefore, we're mavate, we give up. Says Rashi. Also, you're right. We never give him license, but here we're going to give him license. And this one exception, my tama, aniyim gufa nichale b'hai takanta. In this takana, they will be nicha d'chi agwele lididei, because one day they'll be in the shoes of that person, and therefore they'll allow it. They'll allow it. Okay. Now, okay.
Rabbi.
Yeah.
It's Yale, and I know it's late, but just a quick question. When we talk about when we talk about the sharecropper's son collecting leket,
right?
Are we saying that he's actually collecting after the nemushos, or he's collecting is the other aniyim see it as if it's after the nemushos, but it's not actually after the nemushos? In other words, are the other aniyim simply giving up when they see the sharecropper's son collecting?
No.
As if it's after the nemushos, or it really is after the nemushos?
It really is. We went through a progression. We said that they're allowed to pick up. How are they allowed to pick up? It's not allowed. Teretz is, okay, you're right, it's not allowed. But when he's there, everybody has left. It isn't as if someone is even seeing him pick up, because the nemushas have left the field. This field now can lie the entire winter and nothing will ever happen to the field. Comes the child of the sharecropper, and he starts scraping around, a stalk here, a stalk there, a stalk there. Strictly speaking, la halacha, he shouldn't do it, because he is the child of the sharecropper. Doesn't matter that everybody left the field. So the answer to your question is no, they're not seeing him doing it, and therefore they're giving up. It's already been given up. The nemushas have left. No one but the nemushas would collect here, and they have gone off to better fields.
But Rabbi, if it's truly hefker, can't the sharecropper himself then go and pick it up? If it's truly hefker?
No, but he's the owner. The halacha is that an owner can never pick up. The halacha says an owner can't pick up.
Even though it's 100% hefker.
Right. Did the Torah make a difference between whether there's 3 stalks or 15 stalks or 10 or whatever? No.
Okay.
It says in other words.
So the son's in the same position as the owner. The owner can't do it. The son can't do it.
But here there's a reason for it, because if you even made any exception, however small, then the owner might at some point be tempted to want to collect it, maybe when it isn't his right.
A slippery slope.
A slippery slope. So we say no. But now what about the minor child? So the minor child, since he's only collecting for the father, he's like the father. He's like the father.
Thank you.
But we're saying that we make an exception here. You're right. La halacha, for sure not. But we're making an exception because no one is going to pick it up. If absolutely everybody's left the field, no one even sees it, no one will pick it up, then it's taka hefker. It's taka hefker. And we make an exception, even with the hefker, that anybody who would have seen it would have said, sure, take it, because but for this, I may be in your shoes. So it's almost like a double. It's hefker. So l'chayra hefker should be okay. But not only is it okay, everybody would concede that he should do it, because he's not taking from anybody, because everybody will allow it in the future.
On top of the hefker, which wouldn't be enough, there are mitigating circumstances.
There are mitigating circumstances, right, because we're saying that the people he would be taking it from are the same people who would want to be in this position in the future. Because who are the people who are sharecropping? Only aniyim. In other words, it's people who don't have anything of their own. So either they get a wage or they get a sharecrop. If they're so lucky to get a sharecrop, they would love for their children to be able to pick up strands, because every strand, remember, they're talking about poor people. Every strand, you collect them, it becomes something, right? Even if it's 10 or 5 or 3, it's something. So the Gemara.
Yeah, one more thing also that I thought about this. I don't know if this brings up the Gemara. The principle, if we do this also, it won't discourage, it actually encourage to make sure that the father will bring his son with him. Otherwise, it would discourage anybody from bringing their children with them to collect with them, because they might think, oh, wait a second, I might have had status as a sharecropper and I can't do it anymore. So the possibility, it may never happen. So you want to make sure that we don't discourage the children from helping.
Okay, so let's think about that just as a practical matter. If you own a field and you're hiring me for a wage, of course I'll bring my children, because as a wage owner, I have nothing to do. I mean, and my children are my children, and that's one thing. But as a sharecropper, you might think, what am I bringing my children? I can never collect from this field. This field is off limits to me, right? That's what you would think. So if someone educated him and said, wait a minute, you're not totally correct. Your children can't collect, but there will be a point in the future where they may be able to collect. Then he would say, you know what, children, okay, stand on the side. You're not allowed to collect, but there will be a point of time at the end of this whole harvest cycle where you will be able to collect, because everybody will have walked off. There will be such a thing as hefker, which in and of itself may not be enough, but the rabbis have said that hefker in this situation has a special extenuating circumstance that no one will possibly even think that you are stealing or taking something. Otherwise, it will be baltashkis. Instead of it being totally baltashkis, you're allowed to take those extra stalks. So it's a step-by-step process that we're thinking here, but you're right. That's how we have to think about it. Okay, so we're going to stop here, even though there's a little bit left of this Gemara, but we'll stop here. But anyway, it gives you an insight into that while the restringencies that the Chachamim had, midoraisa or not midoraisa, they nevertheless had certain leniencies, which under certain circumstances specifically would come into play. So it's kind of like a balancing act. But unfortunately, they are poor, and then there are poor, and then there's even more poor. So even the Torah understood, even though midoraisa. See, the important thing here to remember is that midoraisa, there are certain what we call statutes, black letter laws. The Chachamim can interpret those statutes, and they can say that this is what the Torah means, and that's why we have Amunas Chachamim. We have Amunas Chachamim to come and to interpret for us that what you and I might think is midoraisa is not midoraisa. So the Chachamim came along and said, Gezel midrabanan. I can't say that. You can't say that. But the Chachamim can come along and say there's such a thing as Gezel, which is a Torah theory. Gezel is midoraisa, no question. Comes the Rabbi Hyatt and says, wait a minute, there's such a thing as Gezel midrabanan. Whoever thought there was Gezel midrabanan? That's how he interprets Rabbi Yossi. That's how he legitimizes Rabbi Yossi, that there's no stira in Rabbi Yossi. Okay, so he takes license, but that he's allowed to take license because he's Rabbi Hyatt. So he takes license. That's the thinking of how our Gemara extrapolates and thinks through Torah. It's a fascinating study, and that's why we have the Gemara, because plain letter law, we look at the Torah says can't do it. Okay, go home. Comes the Gemara with all of its deep insight and says, when the Torah says midoraisa, it doesn't quite mean that. All right, it means something a little bit different, and that's Amunas Chachamim. Right? That's a beautiful thing. All right, thank you,
Rabbi.
We'll pick it up next week.
Yep, remember we're changing our clocks next week, so
that's
it'll
right.
It'll be different.
Clock, so we're going to be on a new clock next Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Rabbi Grauman.
Yeah.
Rabbi Grauman.
Yes, David.
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Can I call you later on?
Yes, absolutely.
Can I call you later on this afternoon?
Yes, you may.
Okay, I'll call you after Mincha.
After Mincha, no problem.
Thank you.
Sei gesund und stark, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Stay safe.